24x7.
Hello and welcome to the special live broadcast of Truth versus Hype. This week, it's been 3 years of one of the government's signature schemes, the Swachh Bharat mission. And on cue, led by the Prime Minister, the day was marked by a nationwide display of cleaning garbage. But questions remain over the success of the scheme, which was meant to make India free of open defecation. Now, according to government estimates, approximately 70% of Indians still defecated in the open when the scheme began, a practice associated with severe health risks. To end open defecation, the government set a target of building between 10 to 11 crore toilets in 5 years. That would have meant building around 6.6 crore toilets by the end of year 3. Now the government claims to have built about 5 crore toilets by this year, so about a 76% success rate. So when it comes to toilet building, the government seems to have set a fairly cracking pace. But is that reducing open defecation? According to government estimates, of India's total 6.4 lakh villages, about 2.4 or 5 lakh villages, I beg your pardon, has self-declared as open defecation free or ODS, which is about a 40% success rate in year 3 of the scheme. Now this is not bad going, except as per the government's norms, self-declaration has to be verified by third party. According to its own data, only 60% has been verified as of this month. 40% is still unverified. The government has commissioned 2 reports on Swachh Bharat from the Quality Control of India, Quality Council of India and the National Sample Survey. The NSSO study conducted in 2015 found that 45% households in rural areas had access to sanitary toilets. According to QCI, that figure went up to about 62% in 2017. The QCI also found that for households having access to toilets, 91% were using them and access to water was 93.9%. But what the release doesn't mention is whether the survey examined whether despite having access to toilets, they still continue to defecate in the open. Remember, a survey conducted in 5 North Indian states in 2014 by a research body called RICE, Research Institute for Compassionate Economics, found that 42% of those who lived in homes with a working toilet were still defecating in the open. In fact, the government's own data on sanitation shows that while there's been an improvement in access to sanitation facilities, rising from 30% in 2005 to about 50% in 2015, there's still a long way to go because it shows roughly half the population doesn't still access quality sanitation. Perhaps the most damning report, though, on Swachh Bharat has been a study by a think tank called the Accountability Initiative, which is linked to the Delhi-based Center for Policy Research, conducted in 2015 and covering 5 Indian states, which shows that about 30% of homes shown as having toilets on paper didn't actually have them. About 36% of the homes said that the toilets were unusable. The researchers found duplicates, ghosts, and missing households. And they found only 3% of the homes reported visits by officials to explain the benefits of Swachh Bharat. That last figure, 3%, is worrying and significant. Now, just to explain, experiences of similar countries which have reduced open defecation, like Bangladesh, for instance, have found that just going on a toilet construction spree is not enough. It's crucial that people's attitudes are reshaped towards using toilets. This learning should have come from the mixed results of the Nirmal Bharat Abhiyan that preceded Swachh Bharat, which had prioritized construction over changing attitudes. Swachh Bharat, however, reduced the budget for the information and publicity part of the scheme from 12% under Nirmal Bharat down to 8%. The available data shows that even this reduced amount has not been allotted fully under Swachh Bharat, dropping from about 4% in 2014 down to 1% the next year, 1%, and the latest figures are about 2%. Now all of this, how social attitudes are still lagging behind awareness and lagging behind this huge growth in the number of toilets, is reflected in the ground, as Sonal Matharu found in Uttar Pradesh.
This is Faridpur, a village in Unnao district in Uttar Pradesh, 2 hours from Lucknow. Here, as in villages nearby, evidence of Swachh Bharat's construction spree. As the Pradhan tells us, it's a race to meet targets.
और अभी तक मैंने शौचालय 27 बनवाए हैं, 27।
ये कौन से ईयर का है?
ये पिछले साल का है, 16-17 का।
और ये टारगेट आप बता रहे थे कि आपके गांव को टारगेट मिला है?
ये टारगेट 104 का मिला है इस साल का, और दिसंबर तक मुझे 104 शौचालय बनवाने हैं। अगर ये टारगेट हमारा पूरा हो जाता है 2-3 महीने में, तो हमारा भी गाँव ODF हो जाएगा।
But for a village to become ODF or open defecation free, it does not just mean a toilet in every home. It means that people need to stop defecating in the open, and that change is yet to happen.
अरे बहरों पसंद है, जब टाइम पे टाइम है तो इसे में पसंद होता है।
टाइम में इसलिए। लेकिन अगर आम दिन है, कोई दिक्कत परेशानी नहीं है, तो बाहर जाना पसंद करते हैं। जब बाहर जाते हैं या इसमें ही बैठते हैं?
नहीं, जब कोई दिक्कत नहीं होती तो बाहर जाना है, तो बाकी इसी में टट्टी पेशाब हो जाता है।
बाकी इसमें।
अरे कभी कभी जहिमा हो जाए, कोई बाहर हो जाए।
अच्छा, अब लेकिन सरकार तो बोल रही है कि मतलब घर पे होना चाहिए ना?
अरे घर में जब बरस कर दिया है इसे, तो जहिमा बैठे ले, नहीं ज्यादा इसे जरूरत है तो चलेगा ना। जब कब बाहर नहीं, जहिमा दोबारा जब बनी है तो बैठक देगा सर।
Almost all the families we spoke to said that they got toilets because their name appeared in the village list of beneficiaries prepared by the Pradhan. They never demanded it, and no one ever came to explain why they should be using these toilets.
अभी तो कोई नहीं आया, पर यहाँ ये तो सुनने मिला था कि मतलब बाहर नहीं जाना स्वास्थ्य के लिए अच्छा है। अब लैट्रिन भाई अच्छा है, या जो मलबा है तो वो गंदगी अंदर रहेगी। अब ऐसे खुले में जाओगे तो गंदगी तो फैलेगी फैलेगी।
हर जाएगी अगर, तब क्या करेंगे?
जैसे अब ये बोल रहे हैं कि वो भर जाएगा तो क्या करेंगे? किसी ने समझाया आकर?
किसी नहीं समझाया। अभी तो कोई नहीं आया यहाँ समझाने के लिए।
समझाया नहीं आपको, यहाँ कहें कि इसमें बैठो, बाहर खुले मैदान में न जाओ।
क्यों?
खुले मैदान में न जाओ, बेटी भांजी बहुरिया अपन यहाँ घर में लेटरिन हो गए तो अपन यहाँ बैठो।
पर स्वास्थ्य के बारे में कुछ नहीं बताया कि?
स्वास्थ्य के बारे में नहीं कुछ बताया हमसे।
इनके लिए बना। In another village, Kapur, these are disused toilets built under a previous scheme called Nirmal Bharat, which again placed a greater emphasis on construction than shifting attitudes.
सोच है कि कोई सरकारी कर्मचारी अमला आवे यहाँ बैठक करके समझावे बुझावे कि भैया ये जो बिगाड़े हो, इसमें घूर मतलब कंडा वगैरह लकड़ी रखे हो, या लोग बर्तन वर्तन मांजते हैं टट्टी बजाए। कल हम तो पेपर में देखा ना, लोग बता रहे हैं लैट्रिन में दुकान चल रही परचून की।
नहीं मतलब ये जो है, तो आपके गांव में कोई आया जांच के लिए?
जांच के लिए नहीं जी।
Those working with Swachh Bharat say that they have attempted to shift focus from building toilets to changing social attitudes. But on the ground, the priority seems to be construction more than awareness. And so these new structures may add little to the objective of a truly Swachh India. With camera person Ramesh Verma, Sonal Matharu for NDTV.
All right, so that was from Uttar Pradesh, but moving on now to Madhya Pradesh, where in fact Bhopal district was actually declared as open defecation free, but as these pictures show that there is still a situation where we can see people still going to the local fields for their business, and this is what they had to say.
स्वच्छ भारत अभियान जिसके तहत आप लोगों को टॉयलेट बने, उसके बारे में किसी ने बताया आप लोग?
बताया था ना।
बताया था? कौन आया था?
वो तो आए थे नगर निगम वालों ने बनवाया।
अच्छा, क्या बोला उन लोगों ने?
सबके घर शौचालय
बनवाएंगे, लेकिन सबके घर तो नहीं बना अभी तक, है ना?
हाँ, आधे घर बन गया, मगर
आधे। आपके घर में बन गया?
हाँ, मेरे घर तो।
कब बना?
ये मेरा घर 3 महीने पहले बन गया।
3 महीने पहले।
हाँ।
तो उसके पहले सब क्या खुले में जाते थे शौच के लिए?
एक और लेटरिन में दूसरे वाले मकान में।
अच्छा, गांव में भी कुछ लोग ऊपर की तरफ पहाड़ पे देखा हमने।
कुछ जाते होंगे, इस साइड के जाते होंगे, नीचे साइड के। अब वो तो आदत से मजबूर है, वो लोग हिसाब से ही सुधरेंगे, ऐसी कोई बात नहीं।
तो शौच के लिए फिर कहाँ जाना होता था आप लोग का?
उधर पे डिब्बा तो रखा है।
डिब्बा रखा है।
हाँ।
बहुत सारे लोग अभी भी खुले में उधर डिब्बे के पीछे भी शौच के लिए जा रहे थे।
हाँ, जहाँ है जानवर जहाँ।
अच्छा, ये जो शौचालय बना रहे हैं, इसकी जो चीजें लगती हैं, गड्ढा वड्ढा तो ऐसे ही खोद दिया, इसकी क्वालिटी ठीक ठाक होगी?
हाँ, वो गड्ढा तो वो छोटा सा ही बनवा रही सरकार।
तो पानी वानी नहीं होगा तो कैसे करोगे आप? पानी
पानी लगवाना पड़ेगा।
And here are images from a village on the outskirts of Jaipur. Once again, the morning visits to the field. And in fact, if you can zoom in on those shots, you can see people going back with bottles in their hands from the fields after defecating in the open. This despite the village claiming that it has a 90% toilet cover.
चंद्रकांत जी ये बताओ अभी तक आपके गांव में कितने बन गए होंगे शौचालय स्वच्छ भारत के तहत और कितने घर में शौचालय है?
स्वच्छ भारत के तहत 500 के समथिंग और 300 पहले के।
तो क्या सारे शौचालय यूज करते हैं या खाली बना लिया और यूज नहीं हो रहा है, इस तरह की भी चीजें?
नहीं, यूज भी नहीं कर रहे, कई तो कर रहे हैं, कई लोग नहीं कर रहे, कई उसमें अब चारा डाल रखे हैं गाय भैंसों का, कई गोबर के गड्ढे डाल रखे हैं, वो नहीं कर रहे।
बाहर जाते हैं नहीं जाते हैं, क्या है आपके गांव में?
जाते हैं, बिल्कुल बाहर जाते हैं। उनको क्या है शौचालय में जाना पसंद नहीं है, बाहर खुले में जाना ही पसंद करते हैं, इसलिए कई लोग जाते हैं, अभी भी बड़े बुजुर्ग जाते हैं उनमें ज्यादा। तो और
आप लोग उनको समझाते हो, कुछ करते हो?
समझाते हैं, हम उनको बहुत समझाते हैं, अगर आप खुले में सो जाओगे तो उस पे मक्खियाँ बैठेगी, फिर मक्खियाँ जाके आपके भोजन पे लगेगी और भोजन से कई बीमारियां होगी। कई बातें बताते हैं हम उनको।
बदलाव आ रहा है?
आ रहा है, बना रहे हैं कई लोग।
All right, joining us tonight on Truth versus Hype, we have with us Bezwada Wilson, Magsaysay Award winner and also convener of the Andolan, the Safai Karamchari Andolan, is here with us. Nipun Vinayak, IAS, he's a former director of Swachh Bharat Gramin, which is the rural toilet construction wing of Swachh Bharat, and also Avani Kapur, director of Accountability Initiative, one of the authors of that report, the highlights of which we just aired. Nipun Vinayak, I want to ask you that about 50,000 crores has been spent so far. These are the estimates we got from the government. 5 crore toilets have been built. These are impressive numbers. But as someone who is working very closely with the scheme for all these years, are you concerned when you see these reports from the ground and these findings that there's perhaps been too much emphasis on construction and not enough on changing social attitudes?
The way Swachh Bharat has been different from the earlier programs, and the reason the ODF, we are talking of open defecation free. This is a term which was coined by Swachh Bharat.
Right.
In none of the earlier programs we were able to talk about usage or measure usage.
Right.
So this is one program where for the first time we are saying it's not enough to construct toilets.
Right.
We are saying that community has to be engaged. We are saying the job of government is not to build toilets for people.
Okay.
It is to engage people, change their behavior so that they construct toilets for themselves.
So the focus was on trying to shift attitudes, but did that actually happen on the ground? Because as we just saw ourselves, that the budget for what is called IEC, which is the kind of information and awareness part of it, has successively been shrinking.
So we'll have to look at it like this. The Swachh Bharat goes beyond awareness generation. We believe that in earlier times we said that people need to be told that toilet is good for you. Whereas today with so much media and everybody talking, there is awareness. And it was realized that mere awareness would not lead to change in behavior.
Okay.
There has to be a trigger, there has to be a close engagement of people, there has to be facilitation of discussion with them introspecting up.
Okay.
So the budget cut is not important. There are states like Chhattisgarh which say that we are doing it voluntarily. There are people who just engage villagers.
Okay, so what you're saying is that the awareness is not such a problem anymore because there's been so much noise about it. But Avani Kapur, your report actually found that that doesn't seem to quite match with the ground reality. I mean, one of the startling figures which we put out is that almost 30% of toilets that were said to have been built didn't exist at all.
Exactly, and I think the biggest problem is that there is an immense pressure at every level. We've gone to the field and talked to district collectors, block level officials, punches, state level officials, and there's an immense pressure to meet this deadline. It's a looming deadline of 2019.
Right.
If you go to the Swachh Bharat website as well, you have a ticker of the number of toilets constructed.
Yes.
And I think this deadline to meet targets, and at the end of the day, some of these things are not very tangible. Behavior change is not tangible, whereas toilet construction is. So unfortunately, while Swachh Bharat did aim to change the narrative, I think somewhere we've gone back to meeting targets.
The simple target meeting aspect of it. Bezada Wilson, you made the point recently in a powerful article that one important conversation which is always left out of this Swachh Bharat discussion is that of caste, and of the fact that unless you change those social attitudes where the task of cleaning toilets and toilet pits and so on is essentially very much framed in the matrix of caste. And without that change, you can't really have a Swachh India.
My only raising the question is always when we talk about anything cleanly or anything, or particularly sanitation,
yes,
by just leaving the caste if you talk,
yes,
it is not at all we are addressing. So we purposely, before we could start, we are starting with the failure.
Right.
Because traditionally in India, past 4,000 years, the section of the people only cleaned.
The Dalits are still the ones who are cleaning the toilets and the sewers and amongst them the women. How would you have liked, though, for caste to have entered this particular program or this conversation? In what way? Because it's also not, I'm sure, your case that we want to continue to replicate those caste practices. So
one thing is very clear when we are talking about, see, our discussion also, it goes very clearly, name is Swachh Bharat. But the discussion and the work is open defecation free Bharat. It is not Swachh Bharat. That is my observation and my reading.
Right.
So you talk about the toilet construction, you talk about the open defecation free. You don't discuss about the manual scavenging. When the citizens are cleaning the human excreta in the country, past many years it was the highest agenda.
Right.
You
so
just displace that.
Okay. I do want to ask you, Nipun Vinayak, on the point Avani was making, is that, why the big hurry? Because as you know yourself, right, you had your own experience when you were in Maharashtra about this whole process of changing attitudes, and you did an excellent job there. Takes time. And yet, this idea of the ticking clock that we need to build, I believe it's almost 18,000 toilets a day that are being built, does somewhat then subvert the time that's taken, that's needed to change people's attitudes.
So one thing is that if we do take more time, this would not necessarily mean that we would do a more qualitative work.
Okay.
We have been increasing sanitation coverage in India at a rate of 1% per year. In 1981, 1% people only had toilets. Even in 2011, it was 31%.
Right.
So if we had to really make a change, it had to be big. Now, while it has to be big, and while we do see the number of toilets sticking on the Swachh Bharat website, the fact is that toilets can be a byproduct also of behavioral change. If there is a village in Chhattisgarh which says that we have made our toilets, we now do Swachh Adalats, nobody will go out. So there also toilets have been made. Just because toilets are being counted does not necessarily mean that that is the focus. We are also looking at open defecation free villages.
I agree with you. I think the point is that, how would you prioritize? That simply just building toilets doesn't necessarily mean people will use them. And that's why you go, I've traveled myself, you found village after village of, beautifully constructed toilets, but they're being used to store gehu, or they've, just shut down.
So on
people don't use them.
On the usage, if I am allowed to say, thankfully the verification process and mechanisms which have been built in the program, and we have done some external evaluations, you mentioned those, have come up with usage percentages much higher than before. We're talking of 90% plus usage. And these are pretty large samples, like 140,000 households.
Sure.
Unlike the accountability initiative, which I think was just 7,500 households. If I can say one thing on the manual scavenging part and caste, I'd just like to clarify that the open defecation free program, the approach which is being adopted is community approach, which means that toilet here is becoming one substance across which people of all castes have to come together.
We're running short of time. Do you agree with that?
No, I want to say very clearly, we are setting an agenda and we are asking everybody to follow that. And we are not talking about the Swachh means, for me, manual scavenging, sewage cleaning, septic tank cleaning and everything. You are restricting only to the construction of the toilet and you are asking everybody to talk. If you talk against something, you say that you cannot talk against the Swachh Bharat as if that it is a holy... We are making, unfortunately. My point very clear is when the people are dying in the sewer line, we are not talking about that. Why?
So you're
And another thing is that when you talk about the attitude and behavior, without touching the point on the caste, how can you change?
Okay,
How the
that's a
people
crucial
who clean is
component.
the Dalit?
You're saying how can you leave out that crucial component? Last word from you, Avani Kapur. Are you convinced?
Not fully. I think that there's a line in the Swachhta idea book itself by the ministry which says that for Swachh Bharat to succeed, you have to unlearn a lot of what you've learned. And so the idea is that it can't be any other scheme, and it's not just about construction, nor is it about ODF. I completely agree with you. It's about safe sanitation for better public health.
Right.
And at the end of the day, that's what the focus should be.
All right, we will. I know you would want to come in on that, but we're out of time. But this is a big scheme and it has big implications, so we'll continue our focus on it. Thank you all so much for joining us. That's it on Truth versus Hype. We'll have to leave it there. Thanks for watching. Good night.